back to Healing Horizons, where transformation meets tenderness. I'm your host, Saima, and tonight we are joined by the luminous Samantha Jones Darling, a spiritual teacher, shamanic healer, and glow fucking truth teller. Her latest book, I'm Ready, Let That Itch Go, is a rally cry for anyone ready to drop the emotional weight they were never meant to carry. After traveling solo for 8 years and studying under shamans and healers worldwide, Samantha now devotes her life to helping others heal and release. So, what are you still holding on to? Samantha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're warmly welcome. So, Samantha, your story is one of like deep personal release. So, what was the first moment that made you realize you had to let it all go?
Well, let's see. The first moment I realized I needed to let it all go was when oh my goodness, that's such a powerful question. Give me a moment for that. When did,
Yeah, sure.
um, I don't know I don't know how personal you want me to get here, to be honest.
Mm.
Um, Actually, okay, give me a second. You know what, can you ask me something else? I'm feeling like
Yeah.
that question is very vast
Mhm.
and hard to pinpoint a specific answer to.
Sure, sure, sure. So, let's come to your book. Your book, I'm Ready, speaks of readiness as a gateway. So, can you share that? How do we know we are actually ready to release what's no longer serving us?
Well, you're going to get a couple of different notifications from your body and your soul and your mind and your heart. If you're having sleepless nights, if you're having ruminating thoughts, if you're feeling short tempered, if you are feeling exhausted all the time, no matter how much you rest, that means your soul needs to get rid of something. If your body is sending up notifications like digestive issues or racing heart or overthinking or discomfort or inability to rest, you're going to get notifications. And the thing is we actually know when it's time to let go. The issue is not knowing, it's actually trusting the notifications that we're getting from our body and soul, because we are afraid to face the things that we want to let go. And so we overlook the notifications that are actually built right into our system. So the more we can slow down and be self aware with our body and pay attention to these signs, the quicker we will get to the point where we're ready to release.
Hmm? I really appreciate how you bring the body into this conversation, Samantha. Like so often we are taught to override what we feel physically or emotionally to like push those or dismiss those subtle signals. But what you're saying really reframes those sensations not as inconvenience but as messages, as notifications, as you said. And that's such a grounding reminder for anyone navigating change.
I agree. And there's another thing too is anxiety. Anxiety is actually not a disorder. It's a notification from our body and our soul that something that we're putting into ourselves, whether it be a food or an energy or a place or a job or experience or a relationship, all of those things are going inside of us in one way or another. And anxiety is actually a notification saying something you're putting inside of us is not working, and instead of taking a pill or quieting the anxiety or trying to run away from the anxiety, what it is meant to do is ask us to stop and pause and say, what am I doing that feels out of alignment? What can I let go of right now to bring me into the relief of alignment?
That makes so much of sense, Samantha. Now, what gets in the way of that readiness for most people?
Their minds and the programming that they have from their parents and their families and the world and the expectations that we put on ourselves and the shoulds and the supposed tos. And there's a saying in America and part of our culture, don't shit on yourself, right? And it's a joke, on a curse word, don't shit on yourself, right? And, when we get into the body again, when we listen to the heart, what do I want to do? What feels right for me? That's when we can get out of the supposed to do's. And when we're in the supposed to's and doing things that are an obligation rather than a joy, that's when we can start feeling really out of alignment. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us have been programmed to say yes, even when we don't want to, especially the mothers of the world, especially the mothers of the world. And if you're in the Western culture and you're trying to keep up with your neighbors and make things look a certain way, and, the Pinterest experiences, all of those things can really cloud your judgment thinking. And in that moment when we get overstimulated, it's not from what's happening within us, it's from how much we're allowing outside of us to hit ourselves.
Mhm. Yes, it's really powerful indeed, to hear that because it really highlights how often we cling to the familiar even when it's uncomfortable or unfulfilling. And there's such a deep vulnerability in letting go, even when we know that, deep down that something has run its course. And what you're pointing, it really reminds that readiness isn't just about courage, it's about self-trust and a willingness to face the unknown.
Yes, and actually, what I have found in my work with this exact experience and many clients, it's not a lot of times people are ready and they do have the courage. They actually just don't know how to do it. And that's a good bit of what is in this book that I have, created for the world, is to show you exactly how and to give you the opportunity to see that it's already part of your body's instincts. You already want to do these things. You can already feel the urge to do them coming up. And then when somebody reads about it, you're like, oh, I was feeling that already. Yes, trust your body, trust your feelings, and trust the simplicity of the techniques in this book to lead you into the self knowledge of knowing how to let go when you are ready.
Hmm. Absolutely, that makes so much of sense, Samantha. Now, what does letting go actually, look like practically day to day, especially for someone juggling trauma, work, or relationships?
Mhm. Well, it can look like a couple of different things. It can look like not going to a place that overstimulates you, right? Not spending time with people who don't see you and don't honor you, right? There's a lot of people who are spending time with their families, their parents, their aunts, uncles, their grandparents, even their children, who are being treated badly by these humans that are in their family. And because, again, we're supposed to be close with our family, people continue to put themselves in the line of fire and put themselves in environments where they're bullied and shamed and guilted and made angry and triggered intentionally and vilified and all kinds of horrible things, and then talked about behind their backs when they leave the room, and never believed in and never honored and never encouraged, and then always put upon. And if you've grown up in that environment, you often don't even realize how toxic and bad that is. And people can often be going back instead of choosing a safer environment and a place that's more pleasant, that's a little bit easier. And sometimes that does ask of us to be alone for a minute, and that can be scary. And that is one of the things that most people struggle with in the transition of going from a traumatic life into a peaceful life, is you're so used to the intensity and the chaos and the stimulation of others that being alone and being in peace can be sometimes even more difficult in the beginning, but it's something to practice with and ease into.
Hmm. That really brings it down to the earth, like, especially for people carrying trauma of navigating, complex responsibilities. It's not about suddenly dropping everything, but maybe pausing before reacting, creating little space. And what you're describing really feels gentle, human, and doable. Like letting go becomes a practice of honoring ourselves in real time instead of like waiting for some perfect moment.
Yes, exactly. And that's when we get to put into practice the muscle of discernment. And discernment is gentle. Discernment says, this isn't working for me. I'm just going to walk away, right? Discernment says, that's nice, but it's not good enough. Or that's lovely, but I'm not interested, right? Or anything like that. And so when you are grounded into yourself and feeling strong and secure, it's easy to be discerning. When you are triggered and feeling chaotic and maybe living with PTSD, or maybe living in upset, or maybe feeling grief because you've just gone through something, it can be very difficult to be discerning. And that's when we want to really get into making sure that we have the techniques to stay grounded within ourselves so we can make the best decisions for ourselves, even in times of grief, even in times of loss, even in times of recovering from severe trauma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, like, is there a ritual or mantra you lean on when old wounds flare back up?
Yes, actually, there is. I have been using the Hawaiian prayer. The Hawaiian prayer for forgiveness is called Ho'onopono, and it's a little bit hard to say, and it's very hard to spell, but it's a beautiful mantra that I do talk about in my book as well, because it was, well, the story's in there, and if you're interested, please do look up the backstory of this prayer because it's beautiful. But what it says is, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And when we use that mantra, and when we're having ruminating thoughts, or we're having anxiety, or we're having anything that's disruptive, that mantra can really bring us back into the compassion and the love and the sweetness that we need to be in, so we can stay calm and, as you said, respond instead of react.
Hmm? That's again such a beautiful and tender practice. Like the simplicity of those words.
Yeah. And I also
Mhm.
put an alternate technique in the book as well, because some people's pain and ego can get triggered by that prayer, because they're not ready to forgive the other person, or they're not ready to be in that softness yet. And that's okay. We don't want to ever push ourselves into a mantra or a technique that doesn't feel right. We only want to do things that we feel excited to do, that we feel curious to do, that we feel drawn to do, right? So in the meantime, if that mantra does not speak to you, one of the things that I do sometimes is I just say, go away, to the thought, to the image, to the visual, to the repeating storyline that's ruminating in my head. And when it comes up, I just say, "Go away. I can't talk to you right now." And I shoo it away just like it was a pest. And that can be very helpful as well.
And knowing that you have included it in your book makes it like feel both a personal anchor and a gift to others. And it it reminds me that healing doesn't have to be loud or forceful. Sometimes it's this quiet returns to compassion that make the biggest difference.
Indeed. It's often just a repetition of little doses of love throughout the day.
Absolutely. Now, you have worked with hundreds of people in deep emotional crisis. So, can you share that what patterns do you see in those who finally, make the leap into healing?
I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay, okay.
I'm sorry. I can't speak to that because I haven't seen any patterns arrive.
Okay. So if someone listening tonight, whispers, I want to let go, but I don't know where to begin, what would you tell them?
Well, the first step that you want to do when you're ready to let go is get yourself grounded. Make sure that you feel safe. Make sure that you feel um, that you're in a safe space. And once you feel safe in your body and safe in your home, then you want to start getting into feeling your emotions and sitting with them and expressing them. And there's quite a few ways that you can do that, whether it be journaling. speaking to yourself in the mirror, or speaking to yourself aloud, or recording yourself on voice notes just to hear what comes out of your heart. And you start there, and then after you've felt your feelings and let them come up, or after you've let your feelings come up and you've sat with them, you're probably going to have some emotions of tears and maybe anger. And there's some techniques to get into those as well. And then honestly, if you've been avoiding them after you felt all of that, you're probably going to be pretty worn out. So then a good nap is in order. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
really just a series of small little things that we can do that are asking us to slow down, to be with our feelings, to listen to what they have to say, and not to rush through it, but to allow the wisdom of the experience to be heard.
That's such a comforting way to meet someone exactly where they are. I mean, in that quiet, honest moment of wanting change, but feeling unsure how to move. And what you have shared offers like permission to begin gently without pressure. And it reminds us that the first step doesn't have to be big or even visible to anyone else. It can be as small and intention or a whispered truth we finally let ourselves see.
Yes, exactly.
I feel that there's like so much grace in starting from right here, right? I said that like there's so much grace in starting from right here, right?
Yes, there is. And that is part of the healing process, is giving yourself that grace to allow yourself to be sad, allow yourself to be angry, allow yourself to be tired, allow your body to rest, allow your body to lead. Because the whole thing about healing, whether you're coming at it from a curious nature or you're coming at it from somebody who's in pain, the journey is the same and the goal is the same, is to get to know yourself and spend time with yourself and be as gentle with you as you possibly can, and to allow yourself to let go of what is not gentle and what is not loving, to make space for what can come in that is gentle and in loving and is encouraging for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's noteworthy. And what's one practice from your book they can try tonight before bed?
Well, that's a great question. I actually have something called the 10 nightly questions that I just love. And I started prescribing it to clients when they were having ruminating thoughts, because that happens a lot of times at night. We start thinking about all of the things we didn't get done, and all the things we need to do tomorrow, and all of the things our children need to do, and all of the things our spouse needs to do, and all of the fear of not getting them done, and the bills we have to pay, and just all of this. And we end up filling our minds and our bodies and our hearts with fear at the end of the day. And so, what I prescribe is in that moment to take all that energy, because that's what it is energy, and flip the perspective on it. And instead of letting it run you ragged into fear, turn it around and start asking it questions from a perspective of love. The first one being, who did you love today? And hopefully you're on this list and you would write down the people that you loved. I loved my daughter. I loved that lady at the grocery store today. I loved the guy at the bank. I loved my mother. I loved myself, right? And then it goes on and it has a series of questions that asks you from an emotional perspective to evaluate your day. And what happens then is we are now taken out of fear and put into the visual of love and looking at our life through the lens of love, and then we are able to go to sleep with pride and satisfaction and love and compassion for ourselves, and really seeing who we are and our best selves at the end of the day, so we can sleep well. And if we sleep well, we wake up well, because the number one way to have a
Hmm.
good morning is to go to bed. And so
Yes.
flip the script on the fear and, get into the lens of love at the end of the day. That's my favorite.
Mhm. That that's again such a beautiful invitation to end the day with intention. And what you've offered feels both accessible and sacred at the same time, like gentle way to return to ourselves after all the noise. And it's like a gentle reminder that healing doesn't have to wait for the perfect time. It can begin tonight, right here in the quiet, right? right?
Yes, and I love your perspective on that, and I don't wanna forget to mention that I do write about these things in the solo experience because we're developing the relationship with ourselves. But that being said, I had one client who surprised me and had another perspective on it, and she did the questions with herself, but then she also did them with her husband, and then they shared their day together, and they shared their emotional experience at the end of the day together, and then were able to not only get closer to themselves, but closer to each other and create a more comprehensive family unit. And it was a beautiful thing.
Indeed, yes, yes. And you have, again, like you have left a message that healing doesn't always need an ending, it just needs a beginning.
That's right. That's right. Just a few moments of
Mhm.
attention.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Samantha, for reminding us that letting go isn't weakness, it's holy work. And to everyone tuned in, maybe this is your sign to stop gripping, to breathe, to say, I'm ready.